Hello, my name is Edric Solon, and tonight I'll guide you through the quiet shadows of the Viking world. Not the battles nor the ships, but something older, deeper, the way they slept, the way they rested, the way they let go of the day. So breathe softly now, let the modern world slip away, and come with me into the firelight. In the quieting hush of twilight, far beyond the hum of our modern world, the Norse sun begins to fall behind a jagged line of pine-covered ridges. Its final rays sweep across the mossy roofs and timber walls of a coastal settlement nestled at the edge of the fjord. A world without electricity, without screens, without clocks, just breath, wind, earth, fire. This is the Viking world. Not of battle, not of conquest, but of sleep. The people here are not preparing for war, they are preparing for rest. As the long shadows stretch across packed earth paths and smoke coils up from the hearths of longhouses, a gentle rhythm begins. It is the rhythm of sleep, of slowness, of natural light fading to darkness. Not artificial dark, but true, encompassing night. Inside the longhouse, the warmth of the central fire glows low and deep. Wood crackles, casting amber light across carved beams and woven wall hangings. The day's work, fishing, smithing, carving, tending to animals, has ended. Boots are pulled off, cloaks folded. The air smells faintly of pine smoke, wool, and roasted barley. In this home lives Eric, a shipwright, broad-shouldered and quiet. His wife Solveig hums softly as she hangs dried herbs in a woven pouch near the bedding. Their two sons sit near the fire, whittling driftwood into small boats, the way their father once did when he was young. Tonight is a cold one, a deeper cold, the kind that settles into the stones and lingers long after dawn. But they are ready. Eric places a log on the fire, carefully banking the coals so they'll burn low through the night. Beside the hearth lies the family's sleeping platform, a wide, raised wooden bench padded with layers of straw and sheep's wool. Solveig shakes out furs and folds a bearskin over the corner. The children nestle into the room, and Eric lowers himself beside them with a slow exhale. There is no bedtime, only night. And light has begun. Outside, the wind brushes against the wooden walls like the ocean brushing against stone. The stars are imaginary, bright and sharp above the fjord, and with them a peace begins to descend across the settlement. This is not a people afraid of darkness. They know its value. They live in rhythm with it. Unlike our modern world, where sleep is something squeezed between responsibilities, measured in reps and tracked with data, for the Norse, sleep is part of life's cycle. They do not fight it, they surrender to it. The fire burns, the rain cools, the sounds settle into a comfortable hush. This is not the only sleep of the night. For in this time, centuries before light bulbs and late-night television, humans slept not in one solid stretch, but in phases, a first sleep, a middle watch, a second sleep. But all of that comes later, for now we rest with them. Imagine your breath slowing, like Eric's, full of cold night air warmed by the fire. Let your body settle into that bed of straw and wool, your limbs wrapped in fur. Outside, nothing but silence. No cars, no clocks, no emails, only stars, wind, and the low murmur of fire. You begin to feel what they must have felt. Not sleepy in the tired, drained way we often are, but heavy, grounded, at rest. As the village around you falls into slumber, you realize this is not just a different time. It's a different way of sleeping altogether. And you are here. Tonight we journey into the deep rest of the Viking world, not as warriors, but as sleepers. As people whose lives were in harmony with nature, whose bodies obeyed the rhythms of sun and season. In the coming chapters, we will walk through the many layers of Viking sleep, how they structured their nights, what they slept on, what they ate and drank, how they prepared their bodies and minds for rest. But for now we begin where they began, with quiet, with warmth, with a slow breath, and sleep. Viking sleep environments and the magic of darkness. In the heart of the Norse night, while the fire burns low and slow, the environment wraps itself around the Viking sleeper like a second skin, silent, dark, familiar. We often picture Vikings as warriors, blades drawn, sails full, shouting into storm and salt. But those images are fragments. Night tells another story, of long houses, of shared warmth, of stillness so deep it seems like time has stopped. Let us step inside that stillness and look closer. The Viking longhouse, langhus, was not just a place to live. It was a sleep shelter, a room of wood and wool and smoke. Up to 20 or more people might share one space, including family, hired hands, and even animals during the coldest months. And yet, within that closeness, a kind of peace. The structure itself was designed with rest in mind. Thick wooden beams, insulated by turf, walls pressed in with moss and clay, and most importantly, no windows, or very few. If there were any, they were small, shuttered tight, or covered with translucent membrane. They let in just enough light during the day, and none at all at night. True darkness, not the dim of a nightlight or the blinking LEDs of a plugged-in world, but thick, total blackness, the kind of dark that feels like falling into the earth itself. And in that darkness, the Viking body would respond. Breathing would slow, limbs would grow heavy. The pineal gland, deep inside the brain, would release melatonin, triggered by that enveloping dark. The brain would say, "It is time, rest now." Sleep experts today speak of sleep hygiene, of blackout curtains, of the dangers of blue light. Compare this to the modern bedroom, where temperatures are held at a constant 70 degrees regardless of the world outside. The Viking bed responded to the world, and the body responded in turn. Communal sleep, more than practicality. We've spoken before of communal sleeping. Here, in the bedding, that closeness became physical. Parents curled around children, grandparents slept with grandchildren, workers and servants lined the far ends of the platform. Wrapped in their own hides, body heat was shared, safety was amplified. If someone stirred, from a dream, from the cold, from a noise, others might do the same. The circadian rhythms of the house became synchronized. Modern studies of traditional cultures, like the Hadza in Tanzania or the Tsimane in Bolivia, show similar effects. In groups that sleep communally, sleep onset and waking times are spread out, but the group as a whole gets consistent rest. People naturally cover for one another, and no one feels alone. The Viking bed, large, layered, communal, wasn't just a place of rest. It was a social cocoon, status and sleep, bedding as identity. While all Vikings shared certain bedding practices, the details varied by wealth and role. A jarl or wealthy merchant might have more hides, imported textiles, like silk from the east or linen from the south, better insulated walls, privacy curtains, a slightly elevated or separated sleeping platform, while a farm worker or thrall might sleep on a shared platform with coarser straw, thinner wool blankets, a woven mat, or even floor bedding near the hearth. But regardless of status, the basics were shared: wood, straw, wool, fur, fire, the sound of sleep. It's easy to imagine silence in a Viking longhouse, but it was never truly silent. The fire always spoke. Soft crackles, shifting coals, the wind whispered outside, pushing against the turf walls. There was breathing, always breathing, the collective sound of a dozen bodies at rest. Sometimes a baby stirred, sometimes someone whispered into the dark, sharing a memory, a dream, a question, and sometimes nothing, just the deep hum of a sleeping house, its people folded into each other, wrapped in the natural materials of their land or labor. The body remembers. If you were to lay on a Viking bed tonight, truly, your body might protest at first. Where's the softness? Where's the bounce? But slowly, over hours, and then days, it would change. You'd feel the straw shift beneath your weight, responsive but firm. You'd breathe in the scent of wool and pine and ash. You'd sleep deeper. You'd wake less. You'd stretch farther in the morning, and your spine would feel longer, looser. And you might wonder, not why the Vikings slept like this, but why we ever stopped. Modern reflections, what we can reclaim. We don't have to sleep on straw to sleep better, but we can learn. Support matters. Firm surfaces that align spine, reduce pressure points, and improve sleep quality. Natural materials breathe. Wool, cotton, straw, they regulate temperature better than synthetics. Weight calms. Heavier blankets create a deep pressure effect that soothes the nervous system. Scent can soothe. Herbal elements like lavender and hops promote relaxation. Clean bedding often. Fresh materials reduce allergens and create ritual. Sleep with others or near them. Emotional safety promotes deeper sleep. Most importantly, bedding should serve the sleeper, not just the showroom. The Vikings understood that. Their beds were not decorations. They were tools of recovery, of comfort, of survival, and of peace. Resting now. So now, wherever you are, feel your own body settle. Whether you lie on a mattress or a floor, under cotton or fleece, imagine the Viking bed, a raised platform, fresh straw, a thick wool blanket, fur across your legs, a wooden headrest beneath your neck, and beyond that, nothing, just darkness, just firelight, just sleep. The kind of sleep that doesn't chase performance, the kind that simply arrives, like snow falling in silence, like dreams unasked for but welcome. Sleep now, like a Viking. Viking herbal sleep aids and natural remedies. Sleep didn't always come easily, not even for the Vikings. A long day of labor, hunger, grief, the cold creeping too far into the bones. Even in the simplicity of a pre-industrial world, rest could be elusive. But unlike today's world of prescriptions and pills, the Vikings turned to something much older: the land. In this chapter, we step into the world of Viking herbalism, the ancient science of sleep, found not in bottles but in bark, root, flower, and stone. These weren't mystical rituals or exotic potions. They were everyday, practical remedies, woven into the rhythm of northern life, passed down through generations, prepared in the glow of the hearth. Let us walk now through the Viking home, not to the bed but to the fire, where water steams in a clay pot and dried herbs hang from wooden beams above. Sleep here begins with the earth. Herbal knowledge in the Viking Age. The Vikings were not just warriors or farmers, they were healers. In every village, every family, someone, often a woman, knew which plants soothed the stomach, which closed wounds, and which helped the mind drift gently into rest. This person was known as a lekner, a healer, or sometimes a sidekona, if spiritual practices were involved. These were not witches in the modern fantasy sense, but respected keepers of plant wisdom. Much of their knowledge came from oral tradition, no medical textbooks, but memory and experience. The Viking world was closely tied to nature, and nature for them was both a battlefield and a pharmacy. Officinalis, Norse name, likely, Varorot. Even today, valerian is one of the most well-studied natural sleep aids. Its roots contain compounds that calm the nervous system, reduce anxiety, and shorten the time it takes to fall asleep. Vikings knew the root well. They dried it, crushed it, and steeped it in hot water, sometimes on its own, sometimes combined with other herbs. It wasn't a pleasant taste, strong, earthy, almost musky, but it worked. Valerian was often used when sleep had been disturbed by grief, nightmares, or nervous tension after battle or travel. Modern studies confirm its sedative effects, showing improvements in sleep latency and quality when taken regularly. The Legnier would prepare a strong tea in the last hours of the evening, served warm with honey to soften its bite. 2. Hops, Humulus lupulus, Norse name, unknown, likely descriptive, sleep flower or dream vine. Known today as a flavoring for beer, hops were originally used for their calming properties. The Vikings understood this. In some regions, hops were stuffed into small pillows and placed near the sleeper's head, releasing a gentle aroma that encouraged drowsiness. Others made hop infusions, pouring boiling water over the dried flowers and letting them steep before drinking. Hops contain methylbutanol, a compound that acts as a mild sedative. For children, a weaker brew might be prepared. For restless warriors, a stronger one. Combined with valerian or chamomile, it created a powerful bedtime blend, quieting the mind and loosening the grip of wakefulness. 3. Mugwort, Artemisia vulgaris. Old Norse, Norbert, possibly from Proto-Germanic mugwort, was known not just for helping sleep, but for shaping dreams. The Vikings considered it a plant of vision and spiritual protection. It was burned, brewed, and even stitched into pillows. It's said that mugwort placed under the bed would ward off evil dreams and help the dreamer receive messages from the gods or from the departed. While science hasn't confirmed prophetic dreams, mugwort does contain sesquiterpeneal tones which have mild psychoactive effects. Many users today report more vivid, lucid dreams when using it. Near Viking bones it might have been used in incense form, burned gently before sleep in hot water baths, with the sleeper inhaling the scent, or in low doses in tea combined with calming herbs. Too much mugwort could lead to overstimulation, so it was used carefully with respect. 4. Chamomile, Matricaria chamomilla, Norse. Now surviving name, but known via trade with Anglo-Saxon and Frankish cultures, chamomile was likely traded or grown in Viking settlements in more temperate areas. Its gentle, apple-like fragrance made it a favorite for evening use. Chamomile is rich in apigenin, a compound that binds to benzodiazepine receptors in the brain, promoting mild sedation and anxiety relief. Viking mothers may have brewed chamomile tea for anxious children, or used infused cloths to wipe down the face before bed. It was also used in ritual bathing, added to warm water before sleep, often with lavender or thyme. 5. Lavender, Lavandula angustifolia, imported via trade, valued for both scent and medicine. Lavender was one of the most valuable herbs in Viking herbal sleep culture. Though not native to Scandinavia, it was traded from the south. Its scent was used to calm the mind, ease headaches, reduce nighttime restlessness. Viking women would often hang lavender bundles above the bed or crush it into oil to rub into the temples. Modern studies show that inhaling lavender before sleep increases slow-wave sleep and reduces nighttime waking. In the Viking home, it wasn't just a luxury, it was a sleep tool. 6. Meadowsweet, Filipendula ulmaria. Norse, could have been called Engjarot, meadow root. This wildflower, with its sweet, almond-like scent, was used to calm the stomach, especially when anxiety or worry led to physical discomfort before sleep. Meadowsweet contains salicylates, the natural precursor to aspirin, and may have helped soothe pain, reduce inflammation, and allow deeper rest. It was often brewed as a tea and shared among family before bed, especially in the winter months when muscles ached and joints stiffened. 7. Linden, Tilia cordata. Norse, Linditré. The linden tree, sacred in many Germanic cultures, was a tree of protection and calm. Its blossoms were used to make a sweet-smelling tea that eased nervous tension, reduced fever, and encouraged gentle sleep. In some rituals, the linden blossom was burned, a form of mild fumigation that filled the longhouse with its floral scent. Children in particular were given linden tea before bed, a tradition that survived in parts of Europe for centuries. Viking sleep rituals. Preparing the body. Herbs weren't just taken, they were part of a ritual process. Boiling water was prepared in the hearth pot, slowly over flame. Herbs were crushed using stones or wooden pestles. A cloth strainer made from wool or linen was used to steep the herbs. Honey, if available, was added, not only for flavor, but for its antibacterial and calming effects. The tea would be shared, sipped slowly, in silence or with hushed conversation. This ritual marked the transition from wake to rest. It was the boundary of the day. Just as the fire dimmed and the furs were pulled tight, the herbs signaled, sleep is near. Scented sleep spaces beyond tea. Herbs were used in sleeping areas. Bundles of lavender, mugwort, or juniper were hung above sleeping platforms. Sachets filled with hops and thyme were sewn into bedding. Fumigation, gently burning dried herbs, cleansed the air and calmed the spirit. This turned the Viking bed into a sanctuary, not just a sleeping place. And modern science supports it. Studies show that olfactory cues, familiar calming scents, help signal the brain to initiate sleep and improve its quality. Healing sleep for the wounded and grieving. For those in pain, herbs were combined in stronger brews, valerian plus meadowsweet for physical pain, hops plus linden for anxiety or mourning, mugwort plus lavender for vivid dreams and emotional release. Sleep was healing. After childbirth, after battle, after the loss of a loved one, it was not just escape, it was recovery. Modern reflections. What the herbs teach us. We live in a world of instant pills, glowing screens, and racing thoughts. But the Vikings remind us, the body is part of nature. Sleep can be encouraged, not forced. Rituals matter. You don't need to forage in a forest. But perhaps, brew tea before bed, add herbs to your pillow, dim the lights, sit by a candle, breathe in something ancient. Sleep isn't a destination, it's a return to self, to stillness, to soil and sky, just as it was for them. Let the herbs work now. Close your eyes. Picture a warm wooden bowl in your hands. The tea within smells of lavender and pine. Around you, the longhouse glows faintly with firelight. The wind is soft beyond the walls. In the air, the scent of mugwort gently rising from the hearth. You feel your chest rise and fall. You do not force sleep. You allow it. Let the herbs do what they have always done. Let the plants sing you to rest. Let your body soften into earth and wool. Sleep now, like a Viking. Fade to soft herbal steam sounds, flickering coals, distant owl call. Would you like to continue with part 6, Viking diet and sleep, how food prepared the body for rest next? That section will explore evening meals, fasting, fermented drinks, and how what they ate shaped their sleep quality. Viking diet and sleep, how food prepared the body for rest. Even in the darkest winters, with snow stacked high against longhouse walls and fjords frozen silent, the Viking hearth never truly went cold. There was always food, simple, nourishing, intentional. But for the Vikings, food was more than survival. It was rhythm, it was ritual, it was a bridge from action to rest, from day to night. Sleep didn't begin in the bed, it began at the table, and what the Vikings ate, when they ate it, how they ate it, deeply shaped how they slept. Let us step now into that final meal of the day, into the smells of roasted barley and boiled fish, into a world without caffeine, without preservatives, without sugar spikes, just fire, just food, just the slow settling of the body toward rest. The evening meal, calm after labor. The Viking evening meal, winter, was a time of gathering and grinding. After a long day of work, fishing, weaving, sailing, chopping wood, forging iron, the body was depleted, muscles sore, fingers chilled, mind was full. The final meal was not extravagant, it was functional, filling and warm. It typically consisted of stewed grains, barley, rye, or oats, slow-boiled with water or milk, vegetables, leeks, onions, turnips, cabbage, or root crops, fish, dried, smoked, or fresh caught, depending on the season. Meat or bone broth, often from preserved lamb, goat, or pork, not daily but occasionally. Herbs, thyme, dill, angelica, or nettle added flavor and subtle medicinal qualities. Fermented foods, sauerkraut, pickled root vegetables, or sour milk. The meal was usually eaten slowly, by the fire, with wooden bowls and spoons, in near silence or low voices. There were no bright lights, no screens, no rushing. Everything about the meal told the body, slow down. Sleep is coming, fasting and natural sleep cycles. Unlike modern life, where late-night snacks and constant food access disrupt circadian rhythms, the Vikings naturally fasted between meals, particularly after dark. Once the evening meal ended, the fire was banked low and the kitchen area left untouched. No midnight snacks, no refrigeration, no caffeine. The body, left unburdened by digestion, could slip more easily into rest. Modern science backs this up. Fasting for 12+ hours between dinner and breakfast improves melatonin regulation, glucose sensitivity, and sleep depth. The Vikings didn't do this because of wellness trends. They did it because nature told them to, because the cold and dark said, sleep now, not eat. Key Viking foods that promoted rest. Let's look more closely at the specific foods the Vikings consumed and how they supported restful sleep. 1. Barley, the grain of grounding. Barley was a staple, easy to grow in northern climates, rich in fiber and slow to digest. Cooked into porridge or flatbread, barley provided tryptophan, an amino acid that helps produce serotonin and melatonin, magnesium, which calms the nervous system, complex carbohydrates, which increase the availability of tryptophan to the brain. Barley porridge with goat milk or broth in the evening helped stabilize blood sugar, reduce nighttime waking, and warm the body, all ideal conditions for sleep. 2. Root vegetables and cabbage, cold season comfort. Turnips, carrots, and cabbage were commonly boiled into stews. These vegetables were high in potassium, which supports muscle relaxation, gentle on the digestive system, warm, filling, and hydrating. A simple pot of cabbage and onion soup, simmered for hours over the fire, released sweet, earthy aromas that soothed the senses. Long before the first spoonful was taken, the warmth helped drop core body temperature later in the night, a key signal for sleep onset. 3. Fermented dairy, the forgotten sleep elixir. In many Viking households, especially in Iceland and parts of Norway, soured milk or skaya, a thick yogurt-like dairy product, was eaten in the evening. This provided tryptophan calcium, which assists in melatonin production, probiotics, which improve gut health, now closely tied to sleep regulation. A spoonful of skaya, often with herbs or honey, was a nightcap, not indulgent, but functional. Some families drank a warm milk broth, gently heated with herbs like chamomile or fennel, a true Viking sleep tonic. 4. Fish, the omega-rich sleep supporter. The Vikings were seafarers. Fish was not just food, it was foundation. In evening meals, oily fish like herring, trout or salmon played a key role in colder months. These fish are rich in omega-3 fatty acids, shown to improve sleep duration and quality vitamin D, critical in northern climates with a little sun exposure. B12, which regulates the sleep-wake cycle. Fish was sometimes preserved in salt or smoked over fire, creating a savory, satisfying protein that balanced the carbohydrates of porridge or bread. 5. Honey, sweet, slow fuel. Honey was rare and precious, but when used, it was intentional. A spoon stirred into warm tea before bed, or drizzled over barley porridge, added just enough glucose to aid tryptophan absorption without spiking blood sugar. It also soothed the throat, calmed the stomach, and created a sleep association, a taste that meant the day is ending. Mead and sleep, friend or foe. Mead, the fermented honey drink, was widely consumed by Vikings, but was it good for sleep? The answer is nuanced. In small quantities, mead relaxed muscles and lowered inhibitions, a mild sedative effect. In larger quantities, it disrupted REM sleep, caused dehydration, and fragmented rest. Most evenings, mead was not guzzled. It was sipped slowly, during storytelling or song, a cup or two, not a tankard. For special occasions, yes, feasting and drinking might continue late, but on ordinary nights, mead was used with intention. The line between medicine and excess was well understood. The timing of Viking meals. Timing in the Viking world was not by the clock, but by the light. Most homes ate their final meal shortly after sunset, usually within an hour or two. Then, nothing. This created a natural fasting window of 12 to 14 hours, ideal for digestive recovery, blood sugar stability, melatonin production, cellular repair. Modern sleep science has shown that late-night eating, especially of sugar or fat, disrupts circadian rhythms, sleep efficiency, hormone cycles. The Vikings avoided this by default. Evening rituals around food was not rushed. After the meal, bowls were cleaned or set aside, the fire was stirred low, herbal tea might be brewed, small stories or songs were shared, cloaks were pulled tighter, and the transition to rest began. There were no stimulants, no dessert, no caffeine, no processed food. The simplicity of the evening meal was preparation for sleep. The body was fed, the senses were soothed, the mind began to release the day. The healing power of warmth. Real food does more than fill the belly. It raises core body temperature, and as it gradually cools in the hours after, it triggers a drop in body temperature, which signals to the brain that sleep is near. This is why soups, stews, and porridges were so ideal, especially in cold climates. They didn't just warm the body, they told it, rest is coming. The emotional impact of eating together. Modern loneliness is linked to poor sleep. The Vikings, with their communal meals, shared bowls, and nightly closeness, slept not just with full bellies, but full hearts. They were not alone at the table. They were not alone in the bed, and emotional safety, research tells us, is as important to sleep as silence and darkness. The Viking meal was a sleep aid, yes, but also a shield against isolation. Lessons for modern sleepers. You don't have to churn your own butter or fish your own herring to sleep like a Viking, but their principles can guide us. Eat early. Let the body digest before bed. Eat simply. Whole foods, warm and grounding. Avoid sugar and caffeine after dark. Include sleep-supporting nutrients, tryptophan, magnesium, omega-3s, B12 and probiotics. Create a ritual. A calming meal the same time each night sends a signal to the brain. Share the table. Eating with others fosters emotional rest. Sleep begins long before the head hits the pillow. It begins with how we eat. And now, let us digest. Feel the warmth in your own belly. Imagine the last spoonful of stew, the soft scrape of a wooden bowl, the final sip of honeyed tea. The fire is low, the talking has faded, your body is still, not heavy with fullness but grounded by nourishment. You feel the deep, ancient satisfaction of being fed, not just calories, not just fuel, but cared for, settled, held. The Vikings felt this too, every night, and so can you. Let the body rest now. Let digestion work as you drift. Let food become sleep, the way it always has, the way it still can. Sleep now, like a Viking. Fade to soft bubbling pot sounds, low fire, faint wind through pine outside the longhouse. Would you like to continue next with part 7, daily labor, physical exertion, and the Viking body's need for rest? That section will explore how physical movement, outdoor life, and effortful labor prepared the Viking nervous system for deep, dreamless rest, and what that means for sedentary modern sleepers. Daily labor, physical exertion, and the Viking body's need for rest. In today's world, sleep is often elusive, not because we're too tired, but because we're not tired enough. We lie in bed after a day of sitting, at desks, in cars, in front of screens. Our minds race while our bodies lie idle. But the Vikings lived another way, a way that demanded rest, not as a luxury, but as a physical inevitability. They didn't exercise, they worked, they didn't track steps. They moved because life depended on it, and by the time night fell, their bodies craved sleep the way a parched mouth craves water. This chapter explores how the Vikings' physically demanding days laid the foundation for their deep, dreamless nights. Let us walk now through their footsteps, across fjords, forests, farms, and forges, to understand the true relationship between effort and rest. From dawn to dusk, the Viking day begins. The Viking day didn't begin with an alarm. It began with light. As the first slivers of dawn filtered through the smoke hole in the roof, households stirred. There were no morning stretches, no coffee routines. There was work, immediate, necessary, expected. Depending on the season and the household role, that meant gathering water from streams, lighting and tending the fire, milking goats or cows, feeding livestock, walking miles to trap lines or fishing grounds, splitting wood, weaving, spinning, dyeing cloth, tanning hides or carving tools, cooking for 10, 15, even 20 mouths. This wasn't exercise for health. It was the structure of survival, and it left the Viking body both strong and ready for recovery. A physically intensive world Viking life was inherently physical. Even the simplest actions were effortful. Carrying buckets of water weighed 30-40 pounds. Grinding grain with a hand quern could take hours of arm and back effort. Hauling nets from icy fjords worked every muscle in the upper body. Treading through deep snow or mud to reach livestock required stamina and balance. Building a longhouse. Days or weeks of lifting, hammering, binding, dragging. Even their leisure required strength. Rowing longships across open sea, practicing wrestling or stone lifting contests. Gathering herbs from steep hills or wooded paths. The average Viking man or woman performed what we'd now consider moderate to high-intensity functional movement throughout the day, and not in 30-minute segments but across 10 to 14 waking hours. This constant varied exertion depleted energy stores, elevated body temperature, activated muscles, and regulated hormones in a natural rhythm that primed the body for deep, restorative sleep. The effect of physical labor on sleep. Modern science confirms what the Viking body already knew. Physical exertion, especially outdoor and manual labor, increases slow-wave, deep sleep movement, regulates circadian rhythm through exposure to daylight and internal temperature shifts. Muscular fatigue promotes longer, uninterrupted sleep cycles. Natural exhaustion lowers sleep latency, the time it takes to fall asleep. Put simply, when the body is used fully, sleep arrives fully. This is what the Vikings experienced night after night. They didn't wonder whether they'd fall asleep. They collapsed into it, earned it, trusted it, the cold and the calories fueling the work. In the north, the cold made everything harder and more tiring. Just staying warm meant more calories burned, more layers to wear and carry, more movement to stay loose and limber. The cold doubled their effort and made recovery even more essential. To fuel this lifestyle, Viking meals were rich in complex carbs, barley, oats, rye, protein, fish, meat, beans, fats, animal fat, dairy, nuts. This fuel wasn't wasted in sedentary sitting. It was burned clean through labor and replenished nightly through food and rest. This cyclical process, work, eat, sleep, kept the body in hormonal balance. Cortisol levels stayed appropriate. Adrenal systems were not overstressed. Blood sugar was stable. The result? Sleep came naturally. Sunlight and circadian synchrony. Vikings lived almost entirely outdoors, whether farming in fields, hunting in forests, sailing open waters, or simply walking between homes. Their skin saw the sun, and their internal clocks aligned with the seasons. This matters. Exposure to natural light during the day helps the brain regulate melatonin, the hormone responsible for sleep. Just 2 hours of natural light exposure per day, easily achieved in Viking life, is linked to falling asleep faster, improved sleep efficiency, more time in deep sleep, and at night, total darkness. No street lamps, no blue screens, no LEDs. Their day-night contrast was pure, light in the day, dark at night, which kept their circadian rhythms sharp and reliable. Even in northern winters with limited sun, firelight and routine kept their rhythms intact. They slept when dark. They woke with light. Their bodies obeyed the world's natural cues. Resting the worn body at day's end, the Viking body was tired from full-body exertion, fed with slow-burning fuel, warmed by fire and communal heat, cooled naturally by the night air, soothed by herbal brews and familiar scents. There was no energy left to toss and turn. Muscles sank into the straw and fur, joints loosened, shoulders released, and sleep came, not forced, but invited. A day in the life. Einar, the blacksmith. Let us follow one man. Einar wakes at dawn. He tends to his goats, hauls water, then enters his small forge. There he hammers iron, each strike a full-body movement echoing through shoulder and spine. He shapes blades, tools, horseshoes. He lifts stones, bellows fire, carries wood. He sweats constantly. Midday, he eats barley porridge with dried fish. He drinks sour milk and rests briefly, then continues. By dusk, his hands are swollen, soot lines his face, and his chest is sore from the heat. He eats again, cabbage stew and roasted roots, and sits near the fire. His eyelids grow heavy. He doesn't need a meditation app. He doesn't count sheep. He has used his body completely, and now it sleeps. Women's work, women's fatigue. Viking women worked equally hard, often longer hours. A typical day for a woman might include tending infants, preparing every meal from scratch, weaving, dyeing, spinning wool, fetching water, gathering herbs, milking and feeding animals, teaching children, managing trade or bookkeeping. This invisible labor was constant and physical. No breaks, no conveniences. A woman's feet might walk 10 miles inside and around the home in one day. Her arms sore from kneading dough and spinning wool. Her back tired from carrying toddlers or firewood. By nightfall, she too collapsed into sleep, body first, mind following. Her rest was earned, rest as reward, not right. The Vikings did not expect rest. They earned it. They didn't schedule self-care. They're trying, in modern terms, to recreate something the Vikings had by default, a world without artificial light. Inside the longhouse, the only glow came from fire, and that fire was banked low at night, allowed to flicker but not flare. It was a red-orange light, soft and low spectrum, the kind of glow that doesn't confuse the brain or suppress melatonin. Unlike our phones and TVs, the hearthlight whispered gently, "Soon you will sleep." Imagine this light now, dancing across the sleeping faces of the household. It casts no harsh shadows, only warmth. The sleeping arrangements were communal, raised wooden platforms, often lining the long walls, layered in straw, then covered in coarse woolen blankets and sheepskins. These beds weren't made for bouncing or sinking. They were firm, flat, supportive, and warm, layered for insulation and designed to hold the heat of human bodies through long winter nights. No one had a private room. There were no individual mattresses. Instead, people slept together. Not just couples, but entire families, elders at one end, children curled into the crooks of their parents, servants and workers nearby, all together, all warmed by the same fire, all breathing in the same rhythm. This closeness wasn't inconvenient. It was comforting. In an unpredictable world, where snowstorms and raids and illnesses loomed, being together at night was a form of protection. It let the body truly relax. Modern research supports this. People tend to sleep more deeply when they feel safe. Communal sleep reduced the need for hypervigilance. It allowed the Viking brain to settle into deep, restorative cycles, the kind of sleep that repairs muscles, stabilizes emotions, and stores memory. We think we're advanced with our queen-sized memory foam and ambient white noise machines. But are we really resting? The Vikings, they knew nothing of melatonin or REM stages, but they built their lives around light and dark, warmth and cold, togetherness and quiet. And that knowledge, primitive as it may seem, worked. Let's return now to the village. Outside, snow has begun to fall. It comes silently, blanketing the world in stillness. The sea is calm tonight, just a dull hush rolling against the rocks. The stars hang clear above the fjord, ancient, patient, unchanged. In the longhouse, the fire dims to glowing embers. There's a girl, Sigrid, maybe 7 winters old. She stirs in her sleep. The air is cold outside the bedding, but her skin's warm beneath layers of wool and fur. She turns toward her mother's back and drifts again into dreams. She has no bedtime anxiety, no glowing screen that tells her she's behind on hours. Her sleep is just sleep. Nearby, her grandfather Thorbjorn is still awake. Old Glenn, even in Viking times, sometimes woke early or stayed up late. He sits by the hearth, tending the fire with one hand and sipping from a carved wooden cup. They lived it, through warmth, food, quiet, and sleep, and this expectation shaped their relationship to sleep. It wasn't a battle, it was a natural end to each day. That mindset, one of trust, effort, rhythm, may be as important as their bedding or tea. Modern applications. How to sleep like a tired Viking. You don't have to row a longship or split wood to sleep like a Viking, but you can apply their wisdom. Move your body daily. Not just steps, real, varied movement. Use muscles. Lift, carry, bend, twist, work outdoors, even briefly. Let the sun help your rhythm. Earn your rest. Don't chase exhaustion, but find satisfaction in effort. Balance effort and reward. Let your body feel useful, then let it feel still. Sleep in this model becomes a result, not a pursuit. The gift of physical tiredness. There is a special kind of sleep that follows real effort. A heavy, dreamless, unapologetic kind of sleep. Not anxiety-laced, not interrupted, not uncertain. The Vikings knew it well, and deep inside, your body remembers it too. And now, you rest, feel your shoulders release. Imagine the ache of well-used muscles, not painful, but proud. You have built, walked, woven, carried, rode, and now you lie beneath wool and hide. Your body is warm, it is clean, it is empty of energy and full of worth. You sleep not as escape, but as reward. You sleep the way humans were meant to. You sleep the way the Vikings did, every night, without question. Close your eyes now, breathe deep and rest. The body you live in is older than time. It was built for this. Fade to soft sounds of evening roll through palm trees, slow rhythmic axe echo in the distance, then silence. Would you like to proceed with Part 8? The Viking Mind and Sleep, Dreams, Spirituality, and the Final Hours of Night. That final part will explore how the Norse viewed dreams, omens, gods, and what the mind experienced between sleeps and just before dawn. The Viking Mind and Sleep, Dreams, Spirituality, and the Final Hours of Night was never just darkness to the Vikings. It was sacred, alive, a time when the seen gave way to the unseen. For the Norse, sleep was not simply rest. It was a passage, a liminal space, a place where the body stayed behind, wrapped in fur and wool, while the mind traveled through dreams, through visions, through shadowy corridors between the waking world and the world of spirits, ancestors, and gods. In this final chapter we explore the spiritual side of Viking sleep, how they saw dreams, what they believed happened while we slept, and how their inner world prepared them for the outer one. We are no longer in the forge, or field, or kitchen. We are in the mind. Let us step quietly. The Viking view of the mind at night. The Vikings believed that the soul, or part of it, could leave the body during sleep. This idea was not metaphor, it was reality to them. The Norse concept of the self was divided into multiple parts, including huga, the conscious mind, emotions, and personality. Fylgja, a spiritual companion or follower, often animal-shaped, tied to fate. Hummer, the shape or form the soul could take, especially in dreams or magic. At night, these layers shifted. The huga wandered. The hammer changed shape. The Fylgja might appear in dreams, warning, guiding, or protecting. Sleep was a time of messages, signs, and crossroads. It was not passive. It was a time of spiritual activity. Dreams as prophecy to dream was to receive. Vikings believed that dreams were prophetic, not always clear, not always direct, but full of meaning. In sagas and Eddic poetry, dreams often foretold victory or defeat in battle, marriage or betrayal, storms at sea, death, birth, or spiritual awakening. These were not abstract symbols, they were instructions ignored at one's peril. For example, in Egil's saga, a dream of a tree blooming or falling is interpreted as a sign of a family's future rise or fall. In the saga of the Volsungs, Sigurd dreams of birds speaking to him after slaying a dragon, guiding him toward wisdom and danger. The line between dream and omen was non-existent. The role of the vulva, dream interpreters and spirit guides. In every community, there were those who understood dreams better than most. The vulva, a seeress or wise woman, was one such figure. She was not merely a dream interpreter, she was a walker between worlds. Often elderly, often feared and revered in equal measure, she practiced Seder, a form of Norse sorcery that involved entering trance states, seeing the future, and influencing fate. Sleep and Seder were connected. Both required crossing into other realms. A vulva might be summoned to interpret troubling dreams, particularly if a member of the household had repeated the same dream, dreamed of death, seen their fylgja in strange form, dreamed of a god, raven, myth, or ship, all signs of coming change. She would listen, meditate, sometimes chant. Then she would tell what she saw, sometimes a warning, sometimes a blessing, and those who listened slept better, not because fear disappeared, but because clarity had come. Gods of the night, Odin, Freya, and the dreaming mind. The Viking gods were not silent in sleep. They were active participants. Odin, the All-Father, was known to travel in dreams, whispering knowledge, testing mortals, offering vision. As the god of wisdom and poetry, his presence in dreams signaled transformation. Freya, goddess of love, death, and Seder, was invoked by women seeking fertility, healing, or dream insight. She ruled over half of the dead and understood the veil between life and death. Not the personified goddess of night was seen as gentle and cosmic, riding across the sky on her black horse, spreading calm and sleep behind her. Dreams weren't just in your head, they were real encounters, spiritual, sometimes divine, nightmares and protection. But not all dreams were welcome. The Vikings feared Mara, a malevolent spirit or demon who crept into rooms at night and sat on the sleeper's chest, causing pressure, terror, and suffocation. This is the origin of the modern word nightmare. To prevent Mara from entering, iron knives were sometimes placed under pillows. Protective runes were carved into the bedpost or frame. Dream herbs, like mugwort or yarrow, were hung above the bed. Some homes placed salt lines near the doorway. A bowl of water beneath the bed might trap negative spirits. Sleep was sacred, but it was also vulnerable. Protection was part of the ritual. Lucid dreams and soul travel. Some Vikings were said to control their dreams. These lucid dreamers could shift shape within dreams, becoming animals, birds, even other people. This was closely tied to Hamingja, the ability to project one's soul outward. Some warriors believed they could fight battles in dreams, influencing events in the real world. Others believed their consciousness could travel to distant places, a form of early astral projection. These were not fantasy ideas. They were accepted truths passed down through story, through practice, through reverence. Dreams of the dead Vikings also believed that the dead could visit the living in dreams. These visitations were rarely casual. They were warnings, requests, goodbyes, answers to unresolved questions. Dreaming of a dead parent, child, or ancestor was a serious event. One would consult the village healer or vulva, or perform a ritual offering, lighting a fire, leaving bread and honey, speaking the dream aloud. Sometimes the dead brought peace. Sometimes they brought unfinished business. But always they brought meaning. The final hours before dawn, after the second sleep, as described in Part 3, the Vikings entered a brief, sacred space. The stars were still out. The fire glowed low. Most of the house was asleep, but some stirred. This was a time for quiet reflection, dream recall, prayer to the gods, listening to one's breath, to the wind, to omens. Some might step outside into the snow, breathe deeply, look at the stars, let the dream settle, or release it into the air. In this moment between sleep and waking, the Viking was most open to insight. Rituals for the morning mind upon waking fully, The first words spoken mattered. Some whispered thanks to Thor for strength. Others recited protective runes or spoke dreams aloud to a spouse or child. These were Gurkha rituals. They grounded the dream self back into the wakened body. Living nails reflected this. Viewing, grounding, simple, nothing rushed. The dream world faded gently, and the day began. What are your lessons from the Viking dream world? What can you learn from these ancient sleepers? 1. Take your dreams seriously. Even if they are just fragments, they may reveal inner conflicts, fears, or truths. Keep a dream journal by your bed. Treat dreams as data, emotional, spiritual, symbolic. 2. Create a sleep sanctuary. Protect your space. Avoid screens before bed. Burn a calming scent. Settle your energy. Your body may rest, but your mind will travel. 3. Invoke intention. The Vikings entered sleep with reverence. Before bed, set an intention. Let me dream clearly. Let me rest fully. Let me find answers. The subconscious listens. So does the universe. 4. Honor the liminal hour. If you wake in the night, don't panic. Let the silence hold you. Reflect, breathe, record your dream, sip something warm. You are not broken. You are entering the old rhythm. Sleep as sacred. In the Viking world, sleep was more than rest. It was a ritual, a crossing, a reunion with the self. The day was for survival, the night was for meaning. They didn't fear sleep, they trusted it. They didn't fear dreams, they listened. And they slept in rhythm with the land, the gods, and their ancestors. Night after night, season after season. And now you sleep. The longhouse is silent. You lie beneath fur and wool. The fire is nearly out. The wind sighs against the beams. Your breath is slow. Your body is still. But your mind is ready to release, to wander, to receive. Sleep is coming. Not just rest, but something deeper. A connection to something ancient, sacred, and true. Let your thoughts float now. Let your dreams come. The gods may visit, or you may simply drift. Either way, sleep now, like a Viking. A mix of herbs steeps in the warm liquid, perhaps chamomile or yarrow, maybe with a touch of honey. The air smells of pine and lavender, dried from the summer months and stored for times like this. He doesn't see this wakefulness as a problem. It is part of the pattern. Soon he will drift into his first sleep. You see, Viking sleep was rarely a single solid stretch. It came in waves, segmented sleep, or biphasic sleep as researchers now call it. One long stretch in the early night, followed by a waking period, sometimes an hour, sometimes two, and then a second sleep until dawn. They didn't fight this rhythm. They embraced it. The sagas and oral traditions make reference to this. They speak of people rising after the first sleep, to tend to animals, talk quietly, share a drink, or pray. Then returning to bed for the second sleep. It wasn't insomnia. It was normal. Modern sleep scientists, like historian Roger E. Kirch, have uncovered similar patterns across pre-industrial societies around the world. When artificial light is removed from the equation, human sleep naturally falls into two segments. We were built for it. And the Vikings, they lived it. Imagine now that you are Thorbjorn, seated by the fire. You stir the coals with a stick, watching the flickers dance like spirits. You hear the quiet breathing of your grandchildren, the steady snore of your son-in-law, the soft sigh of wind against the turf roof. You're not tired yet, but you're not anxious either. You are in the watch between sleeps. You pull a woolen wrap over your shoulders and sip again from your cup. The herbs you gathered in the summer, valerian, hops, and sweet lime flower, steeped just long enough to be strong, but not bitter. These plants help settle the stomach and calm the nervous system. You didn't study them in a laboratory, you learned them from your mother, and she from hers. This moment, dark, quiet, midwinter, feels like the stillest part of the year, and in this stillness, sleep returns easily. When the cup is empty and the coals glow red, you return to the sleeping platform. You slip between the furs, and as your body warms beneath the layers, your breath deepens and you drift. Your second sleep begins. Outside, the snow has thickened. It piles on the wooden eaves and softens the footsteps of the fox that crosses the path. The fjord is hidden now, wrapped in white. All around, the village is silent. No one needs an alarm clock. The dawn will come, and the sleepers will rise when the light returns. This harmony, with season, with darkness, with breath, was not mystical. It was practical, natural, but also profound. Sleep was not a war to win. It was a tide to ride, a hymn to return to, a rhythm to follow. Now let's visit another house on the other side of the settlement, closer to the tree line. Here lives Ingvild, a widow, and her sister, Kari. The two women keep a small hearth, and they share their home with a young apprentice named Rona. Tonight they've hung a thick wool curtain around their sleeping area to keep in the warmth. Beneath it, the air is heavy with the scent of dried spruce and tallow candles. They've already had their first sleep and now lie quietly, whispering. Kari recounts a dream, a memory of their father sailing into a golden sky. Ingvild hums a lullaby that was once sung to them as children. There's no sense of time pressure, no panic about sleep cycles, just a sense that night has a shape, and within that shape dreams are meant to come. Eventually the house grows quiet again. The second sleep begins. Outside the sky lightens, not with sun but with snow clouds reflecting moonlight. It is nearly morning. The village stirs slowly. No one leaps from bed. There are no alarms, no urgent commutes. Just the gradual shift of the world from sleep to wakefulness. A few coals are stirred, a goat bleats, boots are pulled on, and the Viking day begins again. But the sleep, that deep, segmented, communal, firelit sleep, lingers in the muscles, in the breath, in the calm. They were not chasing better sleep, they simply lived it. And that is where we will return again, not to fight sleep, but to join it. To remember what it feels like to surrender fully to the dark, to lay down without fear, without noise, without clocks. Let your eyes close now. Feel the imagined warmth of firelight, the heaviness of wool across your shoulders, the complete darkness behind your eyelids. Breathe in and out. Let yourself join the rhythm of the Viking night, where sleep was not a struggle, but a gift. The two sleeps of the north, Viking, Biphasic sleep patterns. Long before alarm clocks and morning routines, before the 9 to 5 and the fluorescent ceiling lights, there was the rhythm of the night. Not a flat, unbroken line of sleep, but a wave, rising, falling, rising again. The Vikings knew this rhythm well. It shaped their nights as surely as the seasons shaped their year. Today we call it biphasic sleep. Two distinct sleep segments with a period of quiet wakefulness in between. For the Vikings, it wasn't a theory or a sleep hack. It was simply life. Tonight we return to that life, to that pattern, to the pause between dreams. A night divided, first sleep and second sleep. In the Viking world, the night was not a single block of unconsciousness. Instead, it flowed like the fjords, with channels and depths, quiet eddies and hidden currents. The household would retire not long after sunset, perhaps an hour or two after the final meal, when darkness had fully settled and the fire was banked low. This marked the beginning of what they called Fyrsta Svefn, the first sleep. For the next 3 to 4 hours, sleep came deeply and naturally. The kind of sleep that today we recognize as slow-wave sleep, the most restorative phase. It was during this first sleep that the body truly rested, repairing tissues, strengthening memory, slowing the heart. But then, just as naturally, people began to wake, not all at once, not with a jolt, but gently, like surfacing from a deep pool. This waking period, known today as the midnight watch, could last 1 to 2 hours. It wasn't a disruption. It wasn't insomnia. It was simply time between sleeps. The midnight hour, neither day nor night. In this midnight interval, the longhouse was not entirely quiet. Some stirred to tend the fire, stoking it gently to keep the embers alive. Others rose to relieve themselves, to sip water or ale, to stretch weary backs. In some homes, people might even step outside briefly, bundled in cloaks, to look at the stars, check on livestock, or feel the snow beneath their boots. It was a time of reflection, not rush. A time of connection, not chaos. Many chose to stay in bed, speaking quietly with those nearby. The sagas mention conversations held in these hours, often about dreams, plans for the next day, or philosophical ponderings on fate, family, and the gods. Some used the time for intimacy. Couples might make love, sharing warmth beneath the furs, their connection deepened by the stillness around them. There was no shame in waking, no anxiety about being broken sleepers. In fact, there was no such term. The Viking night was meant to be divided. Second sleep begins. After an hour or so, the fire rebanked and the house quiet again, the second sleep would begin. Anna Sveffen. This phase of sleep was lighter, more dream-filled. Today we might call it REM sleep, the phase where dreams become vivid and where emotional processing happens. In the Norse tradition, dreams were not just byproducts of the mind. They were messengers, signs, warnings or blessings from the gods. A dream remembered in the morning might shape the day's decisions, whether to sail, to travel, to propose a marriage, or delay a trade. Dreams carried weight, and second sleep was their domain. Saga evidence, dreams, and divided nights. Norse literature, especially the sagas, provides glimpses into this divided sleep. In Grettir's saga, the hero rises in the middle of the night to check on the animals and perform a quiet task. In Egger's saga, family members rise between sleeps to speak in hushed tones near the fire, or to tend to the sick. The language doesn't treat these interruptions as unusual, they're part of the flow. Sleep historians like A. Roger Eckert have documented hundreds of similar references, not only in Norse texts but across pre-industrial Europe, Asia, and Africa, before artificial lighting spread widely. Segmented sleep was the human norm. The Vikings, surrounded by long Arctic nights and thick turf-roof homes, lived this rhythm perfectly. Why two sleeps work today? Sleep scientists are rediscovering what the Vikings lived daily. Segmented sleep may be biologically natural. Our ancestors' internal clocks, governed by the sun or the dark, seeing good for it. In the early night, our bodies drop into deep sleep. Then a natural period of wakefulness occurs as certain hormones like prolactin and cortisol begin to rise, not in stress, but in alertness. Then, if conditions are right, low light, calm surroundings, a feeling of safety, the body slides gently into a second sleep, rich in dreams. Modern studies have shown that when people are removed from artificial light for just a few weeks, placed in environments with only natural sun and firelight, their sleep shifts into this biphasic pattern naturally. They don't need to be taught it, their bodies remember. The Vikings never forgot. Midnight characters, a glimpse into the night. Let's meet some of those who lived this rhythm. Torgil, the herder. He wakes sometime after midnight, not startled, simply aware. The fire has dimmed, So he slips from under the furs and pads across the floorboards to the door. Outside, the wind is sharp. He walks the short path to the pen where his goats rest. One of them is bleating softly, caught in a tangle of its own tether. He frees it, pats its side, and whispers a few calming words before returning to the house. Inside, he warms his hands by the fire and takes a drink from the wooden cup beside his sleeping spot. Barley water with a pinch of mugwort steeped in. Then he lies back down. His body curls around his wife, and soon he is dreaming. Svala, the weaver. She wakes just before her usual second sleep. Rather than lie still, she reaches for her spindle. By the dim red glow of the coals, she works quietly, turning wool into thread. Her hands know the motion. She doesn't need full light. Her mind drifts as she spins. She thinks of her daughter's upcoming wedding, of the tapestry she'll finish in the spring, of a story her mother told long ago about a woman who dreamed of the sea and woke to find her husband's ship returned. When she finally sets the spindle aside, her heart feels lighter. She lies down again and dreams of a longship cutting through fog. Why the pause mattered. This period between sleeps wasn't just a physiological quirk. It served a purpose, several in fact. It was time to reflect and reconnect with others in the house, tend to small tasks that were easier in quiet hours, interpret dreams from first sleep, calm the body before entering the more emotionally active second sleep, and perhaps most importantly, it allowed for flexibility. If danger arose, wolves near the livestock, wind threatening the roof, footsteps outside the fence, there was already someone awake. In this way, segmented sleep became part of the village's survival system. Why we lost it? So why did it change? Why, if this rhythm worked so well, did it vanish? The answer lies in light. The more humans pushed back the darkness, with candles, with lanterns, and finally with gaslights and electric bulbs, the more they compressed their sleep. Industrialization demanded early rising and late hours. Cities brightened the night sky. Work hours standardized. The pause between sleeps, once a natural resting point, became inconvenient, then stigmatized, then forgotten. Insomnia replaced the midnight watch, but the body still remembers. Even now, if you wake in the night and feel strangely alert, you may be closer to your Viking ancestors than you think. Modern lessons from Biphasic sleep. What can we learn from these two sleeps? Waking in the night is not a failure. It may be your body returning to an older, more natural rhythm. The time between sleeps can be peaceful. Don't reach for your phone. Instead, light a candle. Read, breathe, journal, reflect. Second sleep is important. It holds our dreams, our emotional processing, our creative breakthroughs. Your night doesn't have to be a straight line. Let it bend. Let it rise and fall. You are not broken. You are ancient. You are made of tides and stars and sleeping fires, just like them. The return of the second sleep. In recent years, sleep scientists have begun reintroducing segmented sleep into therapeutic practices. People suffering from insomnia are sometimes reassured. You don't need 8 perfect hours. You can sleep in phases. You can rise briefly and return. It works. The Vikings knew it, and so can you. As the night fades, let us return once more to the longhouse. The embers are almost out now. The sleepers stir. The second sleep is ending, and outside the sky has softened to a cold blue. Snow crunches underfoot as someone steps outside with a bucket. The goats are fed. The fire is fed. The breath of the village begins to rise again. And you feel it too. Not rushed, not tired, but rested, held, aligned, as though you have slept not just through the night, but with the night, and that makes all the difference. Viking bedding, the materials of rest. As the hush of the Viking night settles again over the land, as breath slows and thoughts dim, the body turns to comfort, and that comfort is not found in plush pillows or memory foam, not in thread counts or synthetic layers. It is found in straw, in wool, in fur, and in the careful craftsmanship of bedding that served its people across long winters and endless dark. Let us lay down now, not just in imagination but in history. Let us discover how the Vikings built their beds. The Viking bed, function over luxury step inside a long house on a cold northern evening. Look along the walls. There, running the length of the building on either side, are the sleeping platforms, raised wooden benches built into the structure of the house itself. They are not separate beds, they are communal, multifunctional. By day, these platforms serve as seating. By night, they become beds. No one expects softness. They expect warmth. They expect durability. The Vikings did not sleep on piles of feathers or deep mattresses. They slept on crafted layers, each chosen for a reason. The base, raised platforms. The wooden base was essential, not for luxury, but for survival. Sleeping on the cold earth floor meant exposure to moisture, rot, and cold. The platform lifted the sleeper away from the ground, protecting them from drafts, water seepage, and pests. Archaeological excavations in places like Stong, Iceland, and Borg, Norway, have revealed the construction of these platforms, often made from wide wooden planks, slightly angled for drainage and smoothed over time by years of use. Some homes had storage beneath the platforms, baskets of preserved herbs, dried meats, or clothing, but above, that was where sleep began. The first layer, straw and grass. Upon the wooden base, the Vikings laid down straw or hay. This was not simply random filling, it was chosen seasonally, changed regularly, and sometimes mixed with dried moss or aromatic herbs. Straw provided a flexible, breathable foundation. It conformed slightly to the body, offering just enough give without sagging. It also allowed for air circulation, critical in a world where warmth had to be preserved without suffocating heat. In warmer seasons, lighter straw was used, often from barley or rye. In the cold months, denser materials like oat straw or reed grass were preferred. Straw was easy to replace, and Vikings did so frequently. This not only kept the bedding fresh but reduced insects and allergens, something modern science links directly to healthier sleep. Some excavations even showed charred straw layers, suggesting that after each season, old bedding might have been burned to cleanse the space, physically and symbolically. The woolen core. On top of the straw, there would be textile padding, often made from coarse wool. The Vikings were master weavers. Wool, thick, scratchy, durable, was their go-to textile. It was water-resistant, insulating, and widely available. This wool layer served multiple purposes. It held the straw in place, it added insulation, it softened the surface, and it absorbed moisture without becoming cold. Even in households of modest means, wadmal, a type of densely woven wool cloth, would be loosed between the body and the straw, preventing sharp stalks from poking through and adding a sense of softness. In wealthier homes, stuffed woolen pads, similar to early mattresses, were sometimes used. These were sewn shut and filled with sheep's wool or horsehair, offering a higher level of comfort. But the principle remained: natural materials, layered with care. The top layer, fur and skin. This is where warmth was secured. The topmost layer of Viking bedding often included animal hides, sheepskin, deerskin, boar, even fox, depending on status and region. These hides were not decorative, they were practical. Sheepskin provided both insulation and softness. Bearskin, for the wealthy or high status, was a prized bedding, heavy, durable, and almost regal. Reindeer or elk hides were common in regions further north, where the cold was severe. In many households, each person might have a designated hide or shared large skins stretched across the platform. The warmth of these materials, combined with the insulating walls of the longhouse and the shared body heat of communal sleep, kept even the harshest Scandinavian winters at bay. Sleeping under the weight of the north, above the sleeper too, there was warmth, not in the form of duvets, but in layered blankets and cloaks, thick woven wool folded several times. Some homes used felted wool sheets, stiffer but excellent at trapping heat. Others may have used fur throws passed down through generations, stitched together from multiple hides. These coverings were heavy, deliberately so. Modern sleep research suggests that deep pressure stimulation from weighted blankets can reduce anxiety and help the nervous system calm. The Vikings didn't study cortisol or serotonin, but they knew what felt good, and the weight of furs and wool grounded the body. Pillows and headrests. If you're imagining soft, fluffy pillows, adjust your expectations. Viking head support was modest, in some cases a cloth-stuffed cushion filled with feathers, moss, or more wool served as a pillow. But in many homes, a folded cloak or a curved wooden rest was used instead. Archaeologists have found wooden headrests carved from a single block, similar in style to those used in East Africa or early China, suggesting a shared ancient understanding of spinal support. These pillows were firm, supportive, and breathable, better for neck alignment than the plush, overstuffed types we use today. Scented sleep, herbs in the bedding. In some households, dried herbs were added to bedding. Sweet gale and juniper were believed to repel insects. Lavender, meadowsweet, and chamomile added calming scents. Yarrow, placed near the head, was thought to ease dreams and protect against spirits. Modern studies have confirmed that many of these herbs have mild sedative or anxiolytic properties. Just the scent of lavender, for instance, has been shown to lower heart rate and blood pressure before sleep. The Vikings may not have had clinical trials, but they had experience and tradition. Changing with the seasons, Viking bedding was not static. As the seasons changed, so did the bed. In spring, fresh straw was gathered. In summer, bedding was aired outside to prevent mold. In autumn, new hides might be added from hunting seasons. In winter, the sleeping area became smaller, tighter, warmer, sometimes with fabric curtains drawn around it to conserve heat. This seasonal adaptation made Viking sleep dynamic, constantly in tune with the environment.